In the studio with me is Detective Inspector Bernie Rankin from the Major Collision Investigation Unit. I want to make it clear, we're not talking specifically about this video because this case is before the courts. That's up for the courts to decide. I'm not identifying anybody involved with it, and clearly the police won't talk about specifics of that case. Bernie Rankin, good morning.
Good morning, Neil.
Wonder if we go to this judgment first. Can you believe, and you deal with the worst of the worst in the crashes, can you believe there'd be any justification at any time to think that any drug, but methamphetamine, was having a positive effect on your driving?
Well, absolutely not, Neil. Of course, when we prosecute people here in Victoria for driving a vehicle with illicit substances in their systems, if required, we will call a medical expert to give testimony as to whether that person was capable of having a proper control of a motor vehicle. And this is evidence that's put before our courts on a very regular basis and is generally upheld by the courts. I think it's an astonishing theory that these illicit substances don't alter your ability to react, don't alter your perception of what's going on around you. I fail to understand it.
And you would see many cases of people affected by drugs like ice. I mean, how does it affect their driving?
Well,
on what you see?
We see a lot of aggression out of people driving with these substances. Their reaction times are reduced critically. They're distracted. They don't see anything in front of them. Inexplicably, they'll run into the back of traffic in front of them. There's whole different ways that it manifests itself, and I think it's very important that your listeners understand that any illicit substance in your system is certainly not going to do you any good, and it's certainly not going to help the way you handle your motor vehicle.
Now, I won't talk specifically about this video, as I said, but are you finding people, in your investigations, people are using this sort of videos more in the cars, the GoPros?
Yeah, a lot of people have them in their mounted on their dash, and of course, Neil, that's assisted us in a number of investigations where people who have no involvement in a particular crash actually record the entire event on their GoPro cameras. So that should be another message to people out there, is that if you're engaging in this sort of behaviour, there's a fair chance that somewhere there'll be a camera that'll record it. And of course, if we get our hands on it, it's of great assistance to us in any prosecution we might mount.
Have you ever had a case of people filming within the car in a crash?
Yes, we have. There was a rather infamous case in Brayside a few years back, Neil, where some young guys were out hooning, and they actually virtually recorded the demise of one of their friends as he left the road, lost control and hit a stationary object, and one of them was killed, and that was recorded by his friends on their mobile phone camera.
So it's becoming more common, isn't it?
Well, it is now. It was an isolated incident when that one there occurred, but we're finding now that it's quite a regular part of our brief of evidence, is that we have GoPro vision from other vehicles not involved.
I was looking at the stolen car figures. They're up 18,000 in the last year more that are available, and that's increased. A couple of things that horrified me. 40% of those caught stealing cars were under the age of 19. One would assume they're not driving around at 45 k's.
No, of course, that's the issue, Neil. Like a lot of the young people, they'll steal a car to get from point A to point B. They'll rarely be alone. So, of course, they start urging each other on to do more and more ridiculous things. And the results of that are sometimes catastrophic. We've got other people who just target particular brands of motor vehicles, and they like these particular vehicles. They learn their security systems and steal them regularly, and of course engage in behaviour which is very dangerous to themselves and everyone else.
So one would assume that a significant number of people who steal cars are driving like idiots, are driving very dangerously. If you're willing to steal a car, you're not worried about the road laws, eh?
Well, you're not worried about anything. You're just worried about yourself, basically. So, of course, there is every likelihood that they will speed, they'll hoon, they'll go through red lights, they'll do all those sort of other behaviours, and of course that is what often draws attention to themselves, is what they're actually doing behind the wheel while they're in the stolen motor vehicle.
Is there anything we can do, public can do? I mean, number of cars stolen going up, a lot of car thieves not caught, a lot of use of ice in car theft, or any drugs, but ice is coming up regularly in car theft. Is there anything we can do?
Well, the first thing, I suppose, Neil, is you've got to be very conscious of the security of your own vehicle and where you park it. It's a very prevalent crime, and of course it impacts people's lives dreadfully. Like, they rely on their motor vehicle to get to the train station, or they rely on the motor vehicle to get the kids to school. Like, it's not a minor crime, and people steal cars might be for a lark or to have some fun at someone else's expense, but they affect the lives of the victim or the person who they steal the car from.
The sort of cases you investigate when somebody is going at extreme speed on the wrong side of the road, doing something which is just totally abhorrent, and it ends in a real disaster if you're involved, do you think they don't understand what they're doing? They just don't care, or they don't think they'll get caught, or they don't think they'll crash? What is it?
Well, sometimes they're the me people, Neil. They worry it's all about themselves and total disregard for everyone else. I think there are times when people just don't think through the consequences of what they're doing. And like you must understand that if you lose control of a vehicle and go sideways into a pole, by the time the vehicle hits that pole, even if it's at 30 kilometres an hour, or if it's any higher than that, your chances of serious injury and death are just absolutely multiplied. So, you don't have to be travelling at high speed to cause dreadful injury to yourself or one of your passengers.